hit record.
Okay, very good. Okay. Right. Okay. So thank you, everybody, for coming to this CTL session on applying for sabbaticals and faculty development grants. I, as everybody here knows, am Peter Remien, Associate Professor of English at Lewis Clark State College. This is my 10th year teaching at LCSC, even though I feel like I just got here. Very strange trick of time. And I'm speaking to you both as a very grateful beneficiary of these important resources and as a current member of the Faculty Affairs Committee, which is the committee that's responsible for distributing resources in support of faculty research and professional development. I wanted to kind of, I was going to initially say, kind of go around. We're kind of starting late, and I was going to say we'll go around and we can introduce ourselves. But I think we all
just go for it.
I think I'll just keep talking because we all know each other well,
Onward.
including Royal. So I made a lot of copies of different policy documents. And I think that I've distributed these to everybody. I have 4 different documents. Royal, I can send these to you. Marlo, I could just forward the email that I sent to you.
I can forward it to him right now.
Okay, great. So you'll have these policy documents as well. And I believe Marla is going to share the screen with these documents. Though actually, I think it's just as productive if you just send them along.
Okay.
Almost everything is kind of publicly available on our website, especially the Faculty Affairs page. But I'm also sharing a copy of my sabbatical application, and that's something that I don't think is publicly available. Okay, so the session was planned to come approximately 2 weeks before deadlines for the faculty development grant. And deadlines for sabbaticals. And the logic is probably a lot of you right now are working on your applications for these things. Who here is applying for sabbatical right now? I know, Royal, you said next year. So Marlo, Lauren, not Harold or... Harold, have you had sabbaticals?
I had one like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm not applying for next year, but maybe I'll apply next year for the following year.
But you are, yeah, you are eligible, clearly.
I hope.
Yeah.
Unless they go, oh, he's so damn old, we're not
Yeah.
going to give him one.
Okay.
But I don't see that on the rubric here. It's not like you know, he's about to retire, so
No, that-
minus
You have to work
14.
for one more year afterwards.
Yeah, that actually is included as part of years of service as part of the language, and we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so all of these
Cadre award.
Yes.
A seniority award.
These are all due on October 1st. And even though there's been a lot of talk about sabbaticals, my understanding right now, and I think it is a well-informed understanding, is that we are accepting sabbatical applications on the usual timeline.
Yes.
With the existing policy language in mind.
Right.
And I'll talk about that in a moment. And I think there, you know, that we might think a little bit about the fact that the language is being very slightly revised in currently. Basically, that this is ongoing right now.
Should not be troubled by that.
Yes. Okay. So the first thing that I wanted to look at is okay. So when you're applying for a faculty development grant, and I think all of us here have at some point at one point applied for a faculty development grant, but the process has actually changed a little bit in the past few years, and we now have this faculty development grant application form. I've photocopied this for everybody, and I cut off the very final page just so I could fit it on one page front and back, and I'll explain what I cut off. I think I have the most important parts. The process is that you fill out the form. This is a Word document. You save it as a PDF, and then you email it to the Academic Affairs Office by October 1st. All instructional faculty are eligible to apply, and this is something I kind of dug into just preparing for this session. This includes adjuncts, but I don't think we very often have adjuncts apply, and I think adjuncts are so important, and we don't pay them enough already. it would be nice if we could kind of get the word out a little bit more so that adjuncts and instructors would feel would feel like they should apply for these grants because these funds are available. The awards are limited to $1,000. Even though when you do your budget, you should include all the expenses. Just include a note below that just says, "I'm only asking for $1,000." And this has come up with the people on the committee like it when you do that. Even though as most of us know, right, if you're traveling to a conference or doing any kind of significant travel for research, it's going to be often a lot more than $1,000. The award typically given to activities like travel to present at a conference, travel to conduct research, expenses related to course development and design. And I see this utilized a little bit less often. If you actually go to the Faculty Affairs website, I was actually a little bit surprised at the range of activities that are funded by faculty development grants. They also very clearly lay out a number of things that aren't funded: new computers, professional licenses, memberships, per diem. So don't include per diem on your even though that might be like one of the expenses and your division might pay for it or something like that, but don't include per diem on the faculty development grant application form. People on the committee also don't like that either. The other thing that we don't fund, and this came up last time, we don't fund any kind of stipends for course design. So it can be used to fund materials that you use for your courses, but a good way to think about this is things that could be reimbursed rather than like paying a check to somebody. And this is something that came up kind of recently. If you're traveling to a conference with a student, the grant can be used to cover your travel expenses, but not the student's travel expenses. And this is something that Marcy, I know you travel with students.
That goes through institutional development.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I actually had to kind of look this up. I went to Martin. Okay, well, where do they get funded? Institutional development. I guess divisions pay for this stuff a lot, and sometimes the clubs do as well. I want to briefly go over the application. Really quite straightforward, and I think we all kind of know this, and we'll move on to the sabbatical because I think that's what most of us are thinking about. One thing that I will point out is most of this is kind of pro forma. These final two boxes, right, are the important ones. And lately the applications have been less detailed than they've been in the past.
This is the description.
Yeah, this is the description and timeline too. I think this is where you really want to include a kind of good outline of the logistics of what you're doing. But then the description of activity and reasons why the activity should be supported. This should be, there's a point of diminishing returns, but a really fully developed paragraph. Notice what they're asking for here. How does it contribute to your scholarly and professional development? How will it impact your students, your division, the college, and your discipline? Right there, we have like 5 sentences. A lot of people haven't been doing that lately. And I think part of it was for a while, everybody was getting funded for these because funds were still pretty good, but we weren't traveling. But I think they're just now starting to get a little bit more competitive. So that's a good thing to think about. I have also included, I hope I sent this around, and I think this actually is a kind of more of an inside information thing. I've included the rubric that we on the Faculty Affairs Committee use. Faculty Development Grant, I think I sent. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, this is actually the rubric that we use to score the faculty development grants. You'll notice some of these things are, things that you can't really influence by the content of your application. Like, what are you doing? Conducting research, presenting a paper or a poster, and then followed by chairing a panel, moderating a workshop, and then attending a conference being considerably lower. So of course, right, that doesn't, your application doesn't really affect that, but the next two categories are the ones where we usually get some kind of separation of the grants by quality. Contribution to teaching and mentoring. So it's important, even if you're doing research or you're presenting a paper and really thinking about contributing to the discipline. And I know this has been a lot of my research. It's really important to also talk in explicit ways about how this is going to contribute to your teaching and mentoring. So things like the senior projects that we do, thinking about in the application for the classroom. Yeah, contribution to discipline. And then notice actually you're ranked on your budget. And this is something I think I didn't think about for a long time with the faculty development grant, that you really want to make sure you have a good, clear budget. And I've seen people lose a lot of points here by not having enough clarity and enough detail in the budget. And then finally, this is something you can't really help, but will help with tenure and promotion. So of course, people who are full professors, right, lose this. But I think actually I'm framing this really, but this is used to help people out who are junior faculty who are seeking tenure and promotion. I think it's a really good thing. And then finally, free from distracting spelling and grammatical errors. I don't think I'm talking to the wrong people right now. Yeah, we always do really well. Yeah. What I should,
where you type it out first and spell check and then copy and paste it in the box.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, you can get 5 points for that.
Yeah.
Everybody rejects all of my other stances. I know.
Yeah. So this is what we actually use, and we really do. I mean, I use this. What's that? I know, and I guess I know I'm not doing anything. That's good pedagogy, right? We give our rubrics to our students, so and it kind of.
It can be added to the website with the application.
You know what? I'll go ahead and bring that up at the next faculty affairs meeting. I think that's a really good, and it's a good rubric too. I think it's something we should.
I felt like I did a pretty good job on, like, even these bottom parts. I felt like I did a pretty good job, but I was like, and then I kept hearing a lot of applications that are done well, and I'm going, like, doing it, like, is suddenly, like, am I not hitting the bar anymore? And then I'd send, and I'll like get it, and I'd go, okay, I guess I am, but it was a mystery to like other people aren't getting it right, and I am, but I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
I mean, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I find it's a little bit unfair because it kind of privileges writing too, and the people who are kind of stronger writers tend to do a little bit better on the more subjective parts of this. But I really like just getting the rubric out there too to really think about. And I think it's a good rubric. I think it's fair.
And my experience with institutional development was always the clear budget, like to have the very clear, detailed outline budget. And I think that matters. And if people are vague there, then that might. I'm just hypothesizing because I've never been on that committee. So.
I'm pretty sure I've lost points on that before. It's a little tricky if you're on the committee because I've kind of felt compelled not to apply. Yeah. Because then I have to step out of the step out of the room, and then I'm kind of not doing my job, right? Because I have to, I should be I'm our division's representative on that committee. So if I'm not there, So anyway, that's that. So actually, Lauren, your comment. So something to really think about, and I think we often don't think about this enough when we're writing both faculty development grants and sabbaticals. When we do scholarship, we're often writing to specialists in our field, or almost invariably we are, and often there's a lot of hyper specialization. When you're writing a faculty development grant or a sabbatical application, you are writing to a broad array of scholars. You are overtly actually not writing to other specialists in your field. There's one representative from each division. So you have to think about how your application would be read by someone from one of the professional divisions, someone from nursing, from someone, someone from the natural sciences, someone from someone from the teachers ed division. So you really, really have to think broadly. And I actually like this. I found it really productive in my scholarship. And it's kind of just broadly being at an institution like this and still doing a lot of research. I've really started to think, like, if I can't explain my research to undergraduates, of what use is it, right? So I think really thinking broadly it's strategically good, but also I think of it as a really important thing just for my scholarship as well. Yeah, very, very important for faculty development grants, and even more important, I think, for sabbaticals because they're so competitive by nature.
Could provide a suggestion for on adding.
Yeah.
It's really important for us to connect this to our teaching. It should probably in the description of activity. I really see professional development and how you're helping your division.
Yeah.
So we might want to actually add the wording, like explicitly say teaching.
Yeah, that's good.
As part of, so that people might go, I don't know, I think people might overlook it.
Yeah.
It might improve what you're getting.
And then we get to the rubric and suddenly it is very, very important.
So I think
Yeah.
it should be made explicit on this form that,
That's
you
good.
know, that teaching, it says scholarly and professional development. But
Yeah.
I really think the word teaching
Yep.
should be in there in order to, because then you can say, then it's really explicit if the person didn't talk about their teaching.
Yeah.
Well, right, the
Good.
wording's right here.
Yeah. And yeah, and it creates greater continuity between these two
Yeah.
documents that are both important in.
In fact, you should probably, since it says it on the rubric, you should say teacher and then training here. Sorry, I know you didn't.
No, this is great. No, this is
editing.
no, this is all stuff I can bring. And Royal, our conversation at the beginning, this is all stuff I can bring back to the committee. So that's really good. I can be a better representative, for things like that. So yeah, this is a committee. I'll be on it next year too. So okay, so let's talk about sabbatical applications. And I kind of wrote this out too, and I realized that this is currently, the policy is currently under revision, and this has been a major topic of conversation. And it's fine if we talk about that a little bit, but I thought it would be a lot more productive to just think pragmatically about applying for sabbaticals rather than kind of getting it, because I know there's been a lot of really good and sometimes very productive conversations about the policy language change, but let's just kind of take it for what it is right now. We'll think about how we can use this language to craft good sabbaticals. So I've also sent around my sabbatical application, and maybe actually we can kind of begin with this. I'm not going to take us through in a great deal of detail. But basically, I just wanted to give you, and I did a lot of ecological damage when printing out everything. And I accidentally made this single sided too, so sorry, trees.
Think of it as a carbon sink.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, you actually have a project title for your sabbatical, and this has been something I've been riffing on a lot more in my classes. I realize in the kind of digital age when attention spans are kind of shrinking and we're exposed to so much information, I think titles are so important. So coming up with a good title. Mine was just based on this project that I'm doing, and I actually it was the editorial board at Cambridge that came up with the title, but I think coming up with a good title goes a long ways here. You have your contact information at the top, and then you have a brief letter. And this is the very, very brief one, where you're writing to the faculty affairs committee, and you're just outlining that you are applying, and very, very, very briefly what you're going to be, what you plan to do with the application. Yeah. Oh, and you're also supposed to include, right, how many years of service do you have? Yeah, and then you introduce the larger application. This is really the substance of it. I remember this being really difficult to write. It took really a lot of time. Mine is yeah, it looks like 3 pages, single space. I don't remember the word count exactly. And when I was writing this, I kind of balanced two potentially competing impulses. So one is to try to touch upon the policy language, which actually gives you a very clear rubric. And that's actually, that is an inconsistency where our policy language for the sabbatical makes the rubric very clear, whereas for the faculty development grant, it's considerably less clear. But this is actually part of the policy language. 7 different categories, and a very good strategy is to work through all 7 of these categories and make sure that you're explicitly touching upon them in your description of proposed sabbatical. But of course, right, I'm an English professor who teaches writing, and sometimes when you're writing to kind of fit a rubric like that, you can kind of compromise the kind of cohesiveness of the story that you're telling. So I think the other thing that I thought about is telling a cohesive and compelling story. And I think of and I know just, based on who's here, we're probably all the people who would think about that. But I think that's important as well, because ultimately, right, this is, I think about Lauren, your trainings in like writing and rhetoric. This is a rhetorical document. It's trying to achieve an effect. And good storytelling can be useful in achieving a desired effect. So I kind of balanced those two concerns. I'm not even sure I touched upon, and this is where maybe my application is not quite as good. I have no idea. I know I was awarded it, but I don't know where I was ranked. Luckily, for me this year, they awarded several. But I think I thought even more about telling a cohesive story. Yeah, okay. So here are the 7. And I have read some applications that I thought were a little bit too transparently just going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I think there is this kind of balancing that has to be done. And yeah, I think if anything, erred on the side of the narrative at the expense of these things. So the 7 categories that we very much when we're talking about the sabbaticals, we do really kind of go through these as well. Though also I think there's a kind of holistic thing too, where you're just kind of ranking them from the beginning. Excuse me. Relative value of proposed leave to personal renewal. This is the language right now. It is currently, it seems like it's in the process of being changed from personal renewal to professional renewal. What are you to do if you're applying right now? So Royal or Harold, and Marcy, were you maybe thinking of applying?
Not this year.
But maybe next year?
I have no idea.
So next year it might
Probably
be
not.
clear, and it might just say professional renewal, and that's where you know, right? You have a paragraph, you have some sentences on professional renewal, but right now this is the policy language. I would just write it to this language, and everyone on that committee is going to understand. But I think if you really want to hedge your bets, you could also say personal and professional renewal. I don't think
I would.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Can't hurt.
It can't hurt.
You can't what you're doing.
Yeah.
Once we're talking about renewal, can we just talk about it as the two of them collective? Professional and personal renewal.
And frankly, we're all professors. We are like the worst profession in the world at separating like our professional lives. People talk about work-life balance, but I feel like that doesn't. I'm always reading. I'm always doing so. I'm always engaged in some kind of research or doing something. So.
Or you're doing something for enjoyment, and you realize that there's a research.
Yeah,
topic there.
exactly.
That's the
Yeah.
worst part. You're like, oh, I could do something with this. No, I shouldn't. I shouldn't. No, I can't.
That's the flip side of it, and the more positive. I guess the negative side would be we're like all workaholics, but the positive side of it would be we love what we do, and therefore enjoyment, professional enjoyment is personal enjoyment and renewal as well. Yeah, Harold.
I can just make an observation. Those of us in the humanities, and I think the natural sciences tend to see things, I think, fairly the same. But as you were saying, we've got these folks from all these other divisions. So nursing and business and T&I. They really haven't come along with the idea of the sabbatical as being something that's really important. And you can't say this, you can't make a blanket statement here, but they're going to be evaluating this. And I think it's really good to, I would say, lay on the professional renewal. You're going to garner more votes from folks in those areas.
That's a good point too, that I was making earlier too, like you're writing to a broad audience.
Right.
Yeah,
A particularly broad audience at our college.
And really, I think that's some of the impetus behind the wanting to engage the Boyer model, really trying to bring in people from other divisions who kind of historically haven't.
Well, I think CTE deserves its own pot of money so that people can go out and spend a year in industry or 3 months in whatever it was, semester in industry, and come back. It shouldn't even be in. I mean, it should be just like, somebody's like, I need to go out and learn how to do these kinds of motors. It's like, okay, go and do it, and then you're back.
And actually, we talked about this. It's a separate issue that's really probably so. Okay, so one of the main stipulations for a sabbatical, you can't get paid. You can't, get paid by kind of any other source. And to me, that very much true to the sabbatical. So you're not just like double dipping. But what about people for whom professional development is working, and what are they going to work in the industry for free?
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So
it's a whole different deal, and it should be handled completely differently.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That allows people to go professional. And honestly, that might be what I know this isn't what we're meant to talk about.
No, this is good.
But like as Jean had been talking about, like people being able to stay. And my first reaction is like, I don't want to get rid of this model.
Yeah.
Like most generally,
No,
a traditional sabbatical.
Yeah.
If people want to like take a leave of, like it's a leave of, would be more like a leave of absence. Okay, I don't care.
That
what you
sounds
call
so
it.
bad, but
No,
yeah.
I don't mean it, like, but I don't know what to call it, but a sabbatical implies that the institution's paying us, where a leave of absence might be there, or there's some arrangement made where they might be getting paid by industry, or they took it like Jean had suggested, a temporary professor somewhere else, and for whatever reason that people felt like that was a reasonable thing, then I think there should be something. I see that as a totally different track.
Yeah, that's a really good
Like a
point.
visiting instructorship or a visiting professorship.
Right, because I was just concerned about that concept replacing sabbatical. And so just kind of going off of that, I think there should be.
Yeah, we're a complicated institution in some ways, and maybe our policy should address that. That's good.
I mean, it should, and since CTE money comes separately from the state, there's no reason why there can't be a separate set of policies for them. And you can imagine all kinds of things. Like, let somebody, I mean, it just takes wisdom, right? And so you can say, all right, like somebody's going to go work full time for Schweitzer for a semester. Well, okay, they're going to get paid, but maybe their benefits would continue to come.
And maybe even some kind of stipend, like not
right, exactly. Or maybe Schweitzer is like, look, we don't really want somebody for 3 months, right? But if we can do them a half. I'm not Schweitzer's so generous, but some other, or maybe they could go work but maybe they're going to work for. Bonneville Power is going to pay tons of money. An example of something where there wouldn't be as much money.
Yeah.
But then, the institute, I mean, it's just a matter of, the dean of CTE working this out. But.
Exactly. But that's really, really good points. And I'll think about all this when I'm on the faculty affairs committee, and this is where a lot of this stuff gets.
Well, it's really a provost thing.
Yeah. But that's what we meet with the provost. And that's, okay. So, personal renewal, probably say personal and professional renewal. I would. I think that's probably the best move. Students in teaching, scholarly creative activity, professional development, how you're benefiting the profession and the division, just making sure that all these keywords are in there and kind of working them in a way that you're creating a cohesive narrative, but you're not leaving things out. And then there are these things that we don't really. This is the time and service computed upon initial hire or since last sabbatical academic year, and then you get points for that for service based on number of years. So actually, people who have been here for a long time, do get more points in this category. And then finally, yeah, proposals for which a prestigious award has been bestowed receive up to 10 additional points. So Fulbright is
What's the Fulbright? If our schedule is off for
I know.
like, if somebody was awarded a Fulbright, you have no guarantee that you're gonna be able to.
I know. That's a separate issue that I think we definitely need to bring up. We need to facilitate those kinds of awards and be rewarding people rather than giving them a hard time.
Because I was looking into Fulbright.
Yeah.
And I was like, the timeline is, our timelines are so different that I couldn't.
Sean Cassidy got one when he got one. So when Sean Cassidy got a Fulbright, and then he was allowed to take a sabbatical, like an extra one, but.
But
There was some
but
finagling.
yeah,
I
It
remember that to happen.
required last minute finagling.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it ended up not costing the institution much, so they're like, we
Yeah.
can find that.
Yeah, and our institution, right? It is good for the institution to say we have Fulbright sellers, right? I mean, that's the benefit.
One would think.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it is. It's just whether it's acknowledged or not, it is. So, yeah. So maybe we have some kind of like separate issues to
Right.
for my committee to think about. But yeah. Okay. So those are yeah.
I do have a question, because this is anecdotally that I've heard, so this is nothing formal.
Yeah.
The people that I've heard some critiques of sabbatical proposals. And they talked about, like, they didn't think there was enough research, like,
Yeah.
they weren't awarded because there wasn't enough research. One thing I did notice on here is that's not a category here that they're evaluating necessarily. Now, they do talk about
Yeah.
professional development, they talk about value to profession and division.
Scholarly creative activity, I think, is usually.
But it's not, okay, so it's like, but they don't talk about, like, there's not enough I've heard critiques that there weren't enough research components, which I didn't, obviously this is anecdotal.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing, so this is, and then I'm kind of going, this doesn't, besides talk about scholarly activity, that means you're going to do research. There seemed to be an implication that there should have been some research that you're backing this up with.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's
But it's-
probably true. I'm just thinking about my own and yeah, that
I think about my own.
I
work, and
mean
it's easy
to
for me
write this well, you had to have done a lot of research,
Exactly.
right? There's a background. There's background.
But
research.
it seemed like, I don't know, it's assumed, but not overtly, and I wonder if
Yeah.
some of the poor, either the person didn't care and wasn't gonna bother addressing it, or if it was, I don't know, it just felt, this is more like my anecdote.
It's kind of it's not explicitly spelled out here. Yeah. Yeah. And this isn't necessarily like part of sabbatical. It sounds like actually what we're getting in the debates right now is like philosophical differences about what sabbatical is, what it should be. I remember a long time ago, this is when we had the mini sabbaticals. Provost Stinson talked about deliverables. And I don't think I don't
Deliverables.
yeah, I don't think people, and luckily, maybe I shouldn't even bring that up. I don't think that's exactly what people want, but I think that's often a kind of implied component to these sabbaticals, like that you're producing something, that something is being produced. And and the other place that the policy language is being changed too is with the travel. And I always thought about travel as central to sabbaticals, but adding professional before travel. Just to make sure that it doesn't sound like it's a vacation. So that's if you are either of you traveling for the, and I would add professional scholarly, like I would qualify because yeah, that is another place, and I didn't mention that at all, but where we are revising the policy.
I think that was already.
Yeah.
I felt like I needed, because of the way I was about it.
Yeah.
Teaching and research is fine. Otherwise, I didn't think it would be.
Yeah, I think that's a good impulse, and especially with travel, that is another thing that's being modified right now. Just adding the adjective professional, and I think because we're bothering to change that language, even though it won't be part of the policy language probably by the time the applications are in, I would mention it.
I have a question. Can the travel happen technically after your sabbatical's over? So,
I don't like in the summer. or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
So that's still part of your sabbatical?
Yeah, I think of it
I
as
would
part of the
consider part of
training.
sabbatical,
Yeah.
but I just,
I don't think there's anything in the policy that's.
okay,
I think it's.
if it's not within like, those very specific. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's fine. And a lot of this is really holistic when you're telling them. And one of the things I said actually, so the sabbatical for me was really, I mean, it was this book that I would not have been able to get done. I'm so grateful for that sabbatical. It was a massive undertaking, this massive edited collection. I worked so hard that when I got done with the sabbatical, I was not pursuing it. I was like, I came back and teaching again was like a break for me because I had turned in the manuscript right before we started the semester. Still traumatized from it. But the sabbatical, yeah. So maybe I'm not a good person for talking about this. But the other thing that I did mention is that it does. I mean, of course, research and teaching. There's this false opposition that I think we often create, and I don't think anyone's advocating we try to pretend we're a research one institution, but for me, one of the things that we do in higher ed is we contribute to the production of new knowledge. And most of us, right, I think the drive for this should not be kind of external pressure, but kind of just internal, our internal passion, right? It's something that we would do. I
We totally agree with this, but my recommendation, having been on this committee, is that just link that
yes,
briefly to your teaching.
yes,
And
exactly.
say, this
Yeah.
renews my
Yeah.
teaching, right? I'm gonna be
Yeah.
a better teacher having done this research.
Yep. So I said, right, and a lot of us here actually we teach writing and communication classes, right? Writing is relevant to that. This is professional writing experience that then I can bring to my English 101 and 102 students. Right. I write on this very high professional level. I have experience in publishing. So I brought, I included that, and I also actually said I did revise 2 of my gen ed classes to kind of thematically fit the project that I was working on. So make sure there's an explicit tie-in with teaching, or you're going to lose a lot of points in that.
But conversely, if you do that, they're gonna be, oh, yay.
Yeah.
There are some real skeptics out there, but hopefully they're no longer there. There was one woman who I could never convince her. But, yeah.
I'm actually heartened to hear this because, I've been kind of putting my hat in this thing for quite a few years. And I do remember hearing quite a while ago that the committee was not keen on hearing about teaching developments, and that developing materials for a new course, for example, was not something that was looked favorably upon because it wasn't research enough. So
I think you kind of have to say you're going to do everything.
okay.
And you kind of are, right?
Right.
I mean, it's not just.
Yeah, you just don't know who's gonna be on there.
Yeah.
And it's gonna vary year by year.
Walk in the balancing.
But I think the best way to do it is like your research and your teaching are always linked to each other. They just are. And I think as Harold said, explicitly spell that out. And one of the moves that I did is, look, I teach these gen ed writing classes all the time. The experience that I have kind of professionally writing and publishing is going to make me a better writing teacher. And it has. I mean, it's not just
Good.
we're, being genuine is always important, even when you're asked to do something evaluated like this. The final thing that I wanted, do we have other questions, comments, or we're kind of almost out of time? I realize that most people here are from really pretty similar disciplines. Everybody, Royals in the education. What's the new education division? It's a
Team.
And who's included now?
Mathematics.
Mathematics, yes. Mathematics education. That's actually great. I love that acronym. I wanted to go over, admittedly, right, I have a kind of limited understanding of the Blair model, but what we have is something that Provost Chilson has sent to everybody. This is on the other side of the faculty development grant scoring rubric. And I was going to have people divide into groups, and I was thinking about different disciplines, and we do have, right, communication, linguistics, composition and rhetoric, which is, both English professors, but and English kind of literary focus. I wanted to kind of, as little groups, maybe like tables, and Royal can do this on his own, think about the taxonomy that we have here, and think about one example of scholarship from your discipline that might fit into this category. And I realize we have different disciplines, but you could talk about it and maybe come up with one example from each of your professions. And I realize, yeah, even though we're all humanities division, we all do slightly different things. So the Boyer model is not part of policy language yet. So if you're applying for a sabbatical now, right, there's no need to think about this at all. But I think in the future, based on the focus here, this could become part of policy language. I actually like it because even just with the short time that I've been kind of trying to think through this model, it's actually kind of expanded how I think about research, and I think it's a kind of useful taxonomy. Especially, I think, in the humanities. God, we have so many different disciplines. Like Nancy, Professor Lee Painter might end up producing a play during a sabbatical, right? Whereas Lauren might publish a collection of poetry. We have all kinds of different kinds of scholarship, and I think the Boyer model is pretty good about thinking about different kinds of scholarship. So we have discovery, build new knowledge through traditional research, peer-reviewed, publish in peer-reviewed forums, so scholarly journals, producing and/or performing a creative work within an established field. So creative work falls into discovery, creating infrastructure for future studies. So to me, discovery sounds like traditional scholarship. Integration, interpret the use of knowledge across disciplines, preparing a comprehensive literature review, writing a textbook for use in multiple disciplines, collaborating with colleagues to design or deliver a core course. I really think actually the edited collection that I worked on was integration more than it was discovery, even though I think in writing the introduction, I can make the case it was discovery. Application aids society and professions in addressing problems. I like this because I think about, like, in the humanities, we've been talking about public-facing humanities or public-facing research. And I think just more broadly in academics generally, like scientists wanting to communicate more with the public, this is where I see a lot of this scholarship falling. And actually, this addresses Harold's point about people who work in the professional, technical, industrial programs, serving industry, government, or nonprofit sector as an external consultant. So this is actually included, and there's still the issue about kind of pay and the sabbatical, assuming leadership roles in professional organizations, advising student leaders, thereby fostering professional growth. And then finally, teaching is actually included as part of scholarship. So this whole umbrella is supposed to be scholarship. So actually, it's like no longer separating teaching and scholarship, but teaching as a kind of scholarship. At least if you're engaging in certain kinds of teaching activities, you are doing scholarship. Advancing learning theory through classroom research, developing and testing instructional materials, mentoring upper level students in undergraduate research, designing program level assessment system. And probably we don't, maybe we can just do more of a brainstorming than a formal. I think we're almost out of time enough that we don't have to do the small group discussions. But we think about like discovery, like what kinds of things would fit here.
Oh, just about anything you produce.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think discovering, based on what this is, things that are quite a few things used here. It's like you said, I mean, even integration kind of helps.
Yeah. But like I'm kind of someone who doesn't fully believe in taxonomies, even like the Linnaean system of classification. But yeah, so I think they can kind of bleed into each other. But I think it's useful, like heuristically anyway.
I think the interesting aspect is like, I think one of the key things that's not really addressed in the measures of performance is this knowledge across disciplines.
Yeah.
And of course, we writing or intersections. Even just within the humanities, there can be overlap. It doesn't have to be like we're doing something and it has to be done with the business division or something like
Yeah.
that. We can talk about intersections of creative or literary, or we can talk about intersections of creative and professional or some writing kind of things. And so that's how I see those kinds of things can be argued too.
Well, that begs the question of when was the Boyer model created? Because there was,
That's like 1990 or Royal, is it older than that? Is it?
because there was a period where writing across the curriculum and communication across the curriculum was very popular. And I'm like, and well, that was getting to be maybe 20 years ago. Yeah. But
It is
I
1990.
remember when there was like this fad in communication departments,
Yeah.
like emphasis, like to create courses and create like writing across the curriculum in colleges and communication across the
Yeah.
curriculum in colleges as a way. And that would have been, I don't know, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so
Agree.
that's why I was thinking that maybe this is
Yeah.
grounded in a context in time.
And you've given a really, and you're absolutely right. Always historicized, right? But yeah, actually you bring up a really useful like integration. Like if you were to, I think about what, who's our great Spanish professor who left years ago when I first came here?
David
For BYU.
David Wiseman.
David Wiseman. David Wiseman was working on like Spanish for nursing, right? That was and to me, it's such a good example of like teaching that would kind of fit into, in this case, like into the integration model. Okay, so I think I get.
I mean, all of us, I can see more, like, I wouldn't see any of these because we talk about application, well, advising students. Well, at that point, all of us, our work influences how we advise students, like in how for their future. So all of us are doing, I can even see directly, like even while your work is more considered literary under like in what you produce, but the thing is that this is going to be helping. If you have conversations with students, if you're formally advising students in directions of how ecology and how we think about these things, well, then at that point, we're already overlapping into kind of the application aspect, and then of course teaching.
Yeah.
Everything we're doing will fall under teaching
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form.
So if this does become part of language, these will be like the new terms to hit. I actually just thinking through them, I think they're useful. And I'm not like trying to sell anyone on the Boyer model, but if we are asked to adopt this, to me, it provides a kind of useful critical vocabulary.
My concern with application is if it would be taken too literal, like if the example is serving industry, government, nonprofit sector, like
Yeah.
that true like service learning model sort of thing,
Yeah.
like it's like, because that's not everybody's cup of tea,
Yeah.
or doesn't fit well with
Yeah.
everybody's.
I guess everyone doesn't have, under the Boyer model, everyone doesn't have to hit these.
Yeah.
If you hit, you won't have to hit one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not,
Oh, okay.
my reading and the impetus behind it, I think, is to expand the definition of scholarship to the point that more people can participate.
Okay.
It's in any of this, all of these
You
kinds of
hit
scholarship.
You hit one.
Yeah,
I
you
was-
don't have to hit any.
I was seeing it as, okay,
Yeah.
this is, you hit all four.
Right.
No, and the point is, most of us just do the discovery part, and kind of weren't engaging in the others. And this is a way of kind of broadening. So to me, I think having a more capacious model of scholarship is actually better for our policy. And it's also a more precise language. I think our policy, I think the language is pretty imprecise. Not being
Why not? This is exactly what you're supposed to say. Yeah. Funded.
Yeah. So other questions, comments? Thanks for the conversation.
One of the challenges I'm seeing in this model is that, like many taxonomies, it divides things where
Yeah.
I don't, like, I'm looking at my own project and like, is it discovery or is it integration? And
Yeah.
it really is both. And so
Yeah, I would have an issue if we had to pick one. You can say that,
Yeah.
you say that, I think we should be able to say it has to follow under at least one. If you're gonna.
Yeah.
if you're going to mix the small, you should be able to talk about that your project intersects at the
Yeah.
beginning of these.
This is
Yeah.
our humanities advantage. We can gather from all those baskets and pull them in there. And good writers, we can explain that.
Yeah.
Lots of points.
Yeah, so I don't think you're going to be siloed into one box. I think ideally, and this is all hypothetical. Maybe I didn't even need to bring this part up, but I think the provost sent it around
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's been,
It should be part of the conversation.
yeah, it's subject to discussion.
It
So.
doesn't necessarily mean that we couldn't even address some of these things in our current. I mean.
Yeah.
talk about these. I'm not saying informally.
Yeah.
Informally.
Yeah.
Thinking about how these things are.
Yeah, to me, it's been
Good way to think about
useful.
things.
So yeah, so ultimately, right, this is the language that we have now. So if you're writing sabbatical right now, it's important to think about this with the addition of professional
Right.
for both travel and renewal. And yeah, I guess just the other tip that I have is really think of, and I'm sure you both do already, but think about it as telling a story that's cohesive and compelling, and mention teaching. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Peter. Super helpful.
Okay.